On my way to work, I walk through a typical New England woodland. It's enormous trees, pine, oak, beech, hickory, maple. They all grew back like weeds on what had once been a farm, a patchwork of grassy pastures and cultivated fields. My footpath wends its way around a small pond that once watered livestock, past an old cellar hole, and through old stone walls that crisscross beneath the forest canopy. During each of my pedestrian commutes, I'm witness to the ruins of an abandoned agricultural civilization and the power of wild nature to reclaim the land. I live in a distinctly younger epoch of modernity. The word modern comes to us from the Latin modo, meaning just now as opposed to some previous condition or mode. To become modern is to cross a boundary in time. In this place between an older culture of rural farmers energized by manual labor, draft animals, and fuel wood, and a younger culture of urbanizing, industrial, more mobile people energized mainly by fossil fuels. When I get to my office at the university, however, to teach Earth system science, the spatial scale shifts from that of New England farmsteads to that of the entire globe. And what does modernity look like at that scale to a geoscientist? Well, it looks like a lot of familiar things to you. Rapid climate changes fueled by greenhouse gas transfers, resulting in the melting of glaciers and permafrost, the expansion of drylands, and the intensification of storms. It looks like ecosystem collapses, resulting in a sixth mass extinction involving both terrestrial and marine settings. And it looks like oceanic transformations, resulting in sea level rise, warming waters, diminished pack ice, and a carbonized chemistry with more acid and less oxygen. This geophysical and geochemical modernity also includes a human component, an overwhelmingly dominant species, ours, Homo sapiens, spread into every habitat and being in direct or indirect control over nearly every other species. It includes deliberate human makeovers of land and sea from top to bottom, often called land use, accompanied by inadvertent, often chaotic repercussions that we hadn't planned on. It includes never seen before synthetic materials like plastics, novel chemicals like the chlorofluorocarbons that nearly destroyed the ozone layer, and radionuclides like plutonium 239, which dusted the entire planet during the atomic bomb testing I remember as a child. The first of these three megatrends, these modern megatrends, climate change, ecosystem collapse, and oceanic changes, are nothing new to planet Earth. In fact, these are the criteria that typically separate epochs on the geological calendar. It's the last three of these modern megatrends, the human dominance, the human makeovers, and the human inventions, that are truly unique with respect to the long haul of Earth history, which began a long time ago, 4.6 billion years ago. But is there a single global thing that holds these six megatrends together holistically and historically? The answer is a clear yes in both space and time. In space, that thing is the entire planet, the close examination and inclusive modeling of which leads to our understanding of a spinning, wobbling, tilting, orbiting, sloshing, living spheroid of gases, liquids, and solids. So that's the part about space. In time, that thing is the newest epoch of the geological timescale, the almost official Anthropocene epoch. It's an idea evoked 20 years ago in the year 2000 by Paul Crutzen and Eugene Sturmer to highlight the idea that modern Earth is distinct from all previous states. It's an epic name for us human beings, not out of vanity or hubris, but for the astonishing power we have used to literally change the face of the Earth. It's a word that, according to Google Analytics, has been accelerating in popularity, even as the popularity of the word environmentalism is diminishing a little bit. It's a word that, through categorical thinking, will help create a paradigm shift in the way we think about nature, the wild, and the environment. A word that I hope will help us return to an ethical and sustainable future. Consider three examples. of news stories from the modern United States within the last few months. Raging forest fires in the American West, especially in California. The return of great white sharks to New England, especially outer Cape Cod. The drenching catastrophic floods along the US Gulf Coast, especially in New Orleans. Now, all three of these things are truly wild responses: wildfires, wild carnivores, wild waters, to something that we humans have done. Ultimately, they can be traced back to human behavior, natural human behavior. The wildfires come from the baking droughts we've intensified by global warming. The wild shark populations comes from the rising population of seals that we've protected. The wild waters are happening on a landscape that's sinking beneath the sea because we've starved the land of the sediment it needs to stay above sea level. But what's the root cause of all this? To get there, we have to work our way backwards through a chain of causality. And I'll use the case of wildfires as an example. The fires are more intense because the regional climate is drier in summer, because the prevailing hemispheric circulation has changed, because the average temperature of the troposphere is almost 2 degrees warmer, because humans have transferred enormous amounts of carbon from the terrestrial component of Earth system to the atmospheric component, because we enjoy the advantages of cheap energy provided by fossil fuels and of global deforestation, because our human psyches are governed by instinctual animal behaviors that emerged during human evolution. Two of our behaviors are particularly important. The first is our natural drive to have families and provide for them as much as we can. The second is our natural cognitive intelligence, which allows us to figure out how things work and invent new and better things, such as tools, crops, materials, medicines, homes, and sources of energy. The motivation to improve our lives, combined with our flexible intelligence, gave rise to science, which gave rise to engineering, which gave rise to the power to literally remake the planet. The rest of this natural behavior has been a human makeover of the Earth's surface, part of which has been very deliberate, like the building of cities, the taming of rivers, and the killing of carnivores, and part of which has been completely inadvertent, like the fouling of our nests and the raising of Earth's temperature. Regardless of intent, human beings are now the dominant geologic agent operating on the planet. That's a fact. Moving mass at a greater rate than the glaciers of the last ice age and the rivers of familiar geologic history. Global modernity looks strikingly different from the regional human history of the previous Holocene epoch, which began about 11,700 years ago. Thus, we geoscientists have no choice but to create an official new epoch, and we're nearly done with the process. And the label Anthropocene is simply the best one we've come up with so far. Various dates for the beginning of this epoch of geologic modernity have been suggested and hotly debated. Some proponents favor the onset of agriculture and early civilizations about 10,000 years ago. Some favor the onset of maritime colonialism in the late 15th century. Some favor the rise of the Industrial Revolution in the late 18th century. And most favor the global explosion and great acceleration of science, technology, human populations, urbanization, energy use, and land conversions in the mid 20th century. This last candidate for the beginning of the Anthropocene epoch is the best one because it is ubiquitously and clearly marked by the radioactive dust from atomic bombs, major excursion in chemical cycles, and the deposition of sediment with plastic trace fossils the world over. The Anthropocene finds its ancient counterpart in the 66 million year old Paleocene epoch, which was also strikingly different from its predecessor, ruled by the dinosaurs. In this earlier case, the change came not from human technology, but from an asteroid impact combined with colossal volcanism about 67 million years ago that initiated a cascade of global disruptions that gave mammals a chance to start evolving into humans. This earlier transition is ubiquitously and clearly marked by a concentration of cosmic dust, geochemical excursions, and the deposition of sediment with different trace fossils. So why does naming a new epoch matter? Because, as Aldous Huxley once wrote, words are the channels through which thought flows. Some of our most influential words are categorical labels. For example, good versus bad, old versus new, us versus them, fruit versus vegetables, or Democrats versus Republicans. Thinking in the box versus thinking out of the box is also a categorical distinction. Though this practice can lead to dangerous false dichotomies and implicit biases, on the whole, it's an essential tool for science, the basis of all classifications. In 1963, I watched one of my heroes, Rachel Carson, address the nation on our family's small black and white TV. She was featuring her book, Silent Spring. 7 years later, in 1970, I participated in the first Earth Day celebration as a college student. Between these dates, I witnessed the rise of a new categorical meme in popular culture, environmentalism, a new way of thinking about chemical pollution, endangered species, and wilderness conservation, all wrapped up into one bigger thing. The single word environmentalism channeled our thinking to create a profound social change in a world that had not yet begun to concern itself with climate change. Well, clearly, today we need a new categorical meme to channel our thinking about an even larger and more profound global concern, the recognition that the fate of the entire planetary surface lies in human hands. Is climate change that new meme? It seems that way given all the scientific media and political attention. But for me, and despite its popularity, climate change is too small a concept because climates are by definition regional and have always come from the geological underground via the tectonic rearrangements of continental plates and the chemical transfers between Earth's solid, liquid, and gaseous reservoirs. Climate change, ecosystem collapse, oceanic transformations, these are merely the big pieces of a larger pie. The holistic or mechanistic view of that global pie is what I teach, Earth system science. The historic or narrative view of that pie is Earth system history, its latest chapter being the Anthropocene epoch. For me, the new meme we need is the word Anthropocene. We must be brave enough to admit that we live in a new world of our own making. Only then can we stop blaming nature and stop blaming ourselves and return to sustainable ways through human invention. To help you understand this new world, the modern world, modernity, the Anthropocene, I ask you to imagine Earth's surface being a golf course of global proportions, with oceans being oversized water features. I don't play golf, but the analogy works for me. Everything, everywhere is the result of human choices, whether conversions of places to better suit our needs or the set asides of places for various reasons. The intensity of transformation falls on a continuum on local golf courses, from the holes in the sod to the smooth greens to the long fairways to the uncut rough and the forested out of bounds. And this entire patchwork of places lies below a human tweaked atmosphere. On an actual rather than golf course imagined Anthropocene Earth, the intensity of transformation on land falls on a continuum, from urban downtowns to suburbs to ruburbia to remote wildlands. And on the sea, it falls from fortified beaches to dredged channels to anoxic dead zones. Both patchworks of places also lie beneath a human tweaked atmosphere. Make no mistake, geological modernity has arrived. Its name is the Anthropocene. After a day at work spent thinking and teaching about the global Earth system at the university, I walked back home through the woods. During my return trip, I find it easier to see these abandoned pastures, the livestock pond, the cellar hole, and the stone walls for what they are: fossil evidence of the epoch before modernity. Perhaps in some distant future, a post-human intelligence will discover the ruins and residues of our Anthropocene epoch embedded in yet unnamed strata. If and when that happens, modernity will need a new name. Thank you.